To kick
Yeah.
things off, Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
About myself. Okay. Well, I am the author of the Cradle series and the Elder Empire series and the Traveler's Gate trilogy. And hopefully soon I'll be wrapping up the Cradle series, and maybe I will survive that process and be able to move on to other things because I like writing new stuff. So I've really enjoyed Cradle, and I know there's a lot more of Cradle I could explore, and I'm excited to do that. But it's even cooler to do a new thing. It's just always fun. I always like doing new stuff.
I'm sure it will be exciting to, I'm sure it will be bittersweet to kind of end the last chapter, but at the same time, exciting probably to move on to some other projects and some other creative outlets, right?
Well, even starting 10, which is out, but I can't remember if I talked about this openly or not, but I kind of plotted 10, 11, and 12 sort of together. So it's disingenuous to call them a trilogy, but I did kind of plot them like they were. And that was, so I was starting even writing Reaper, getting a little bit emotional about, I don't want to say goodbye to these characters. They've meant a lot to me for years now. So yeah, I'm hoping it wraps up well. I think it's going to. I think the riskiest thing I had left to do was in 10. So then I think I can land it, but I gotta land it.
It seems like a lot of series are judged on how things end. You know, there's some famous examples out there, but I'm sure you'll do great. So,
well, I mean, to be honest, my general feeling of it is just land the plane. It's the don't try to take a huge swing out of nowhere, and God knows don't end it because you want to get out of your contract. Game of Thrones, but the Game of Thrones, it's that cold acting up. But I think a lot of times what people try to do is they try to do something wildly different at the end of their series. So they try to take some big swing that was not at all what the story was up to now. And so it ends up feeling out of nowhere. It ends up feeling like, all of a sudden the message is about friendship when it's been on the focus of a single character the entire time, or all of a sudden it's, God descending from the sky and fixing everything, or all of a sudden it just feels like you've now ended a different series than you were continuing. So my real focus is just on not losing more than it is getting a home run. It's more about, I'm like, look, I just don't want to let people down.
You're already playing with a lead. You just got to finish the game.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Just don't trip over myself and land face first at the finish line. Although one of the cool things about what you and I do is theoretically, if it did bomb, I could just rewrite it.
Right. Rewrite it, add another book on it. There are options. I've got to ask, did you watch How I Met Your Mother?
No, I did not.
Okay. That it's just another example of an ending that kind of bombed, and they actually did an alternate ending that most fans have basically in headcanon said, no, this is the real ending because the original was so bad. So
that and Lost are two of the ones that I know like archetypally as the terrible endings. But the ones I'm personally aware of are Game of Thrones and Mass Effect. Those are the ones that really let me down. So
much coming up, but I'm sure, as you said, that you'll land the plane and things will go well.
I hope so.
So shifting gears a little bit, we chat a little bit about being an author and your plans coming up at the end of Cradle. But before we get into the main topic of the night, I've got to ask some questions that I know people are dying to hear the answer for. And if you've seen, for those of you who saw Will Wight's video announcing his Kickstarter after Brandon Sanderson's surprise launch, or if you interacted in Will at all, you've probably heard him mention Oreos before. So I'm going to grill you a little bit on your love and knowledge of Oreos, just to see if you're a true fan or if you're really just an Oreo imposter in disguise. But
very possible. I may just be Googling it off the screen.
No worries. There won't be a quiz. It's mostly personal preference.
Okay, good.
But like everything, personal preference, there is a right and wrong answer depending on who you ask.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
So just a few rapid fire questions. The first one is double stuff or single stuff Oreos?
Double stuff.
Okay. I have to ask too, have you had the ones that are like, it's called like all the stuff or something?
Yeah, there's triple stuff and there's most stuff. And then there's like another one that was limited run that was like overstuffed or something. I don't remember what that was called. But most stuff, that's too much. That's too much. I used those a couple of times when I was making an Oreo dessert where I wanted to scrape out the cream. And so you can either scrape out 16 regular Oreos or like 4 of the most stuff Oreos. But other than that, it's just the double stuff has the right amount of cream. That's the correct amount.
So I'm going to read between the lines there a little bit. That was a pretty serious Oreo flex. You're throwing out numbers of how many Oreos it takes to make a dessert.
All right. So the way this started, I know you have other like topics, but the way this started was a few years ago for a friend of mine's birthday. We had done an Airbnb and we were taking him out and it was a surprise. And he doesn't react to surprises the best. Like he was kind of like very deer in the headlights. And so it's like, so we were like, hey, do you want to do this? And he was kind of like, not really. So I was like, listen, we're going to find something that we're going to do with just around here normally. And so I just went to Publix and bought every single, which for those of you who don't know what Publix is an awesome grocery store in the Southeast United States. But every single variant Oreo there, and then we just did an Oreo taste test. And so that ended up being this fun thing that we did for a few hours. And I wrote a blog post about it because I thought it was funny. And it kind of became this thing of like, I'm obsessed with Oreos. People would send me Oreos and they'd send me Oreo stuff. And that was never that. It's funny because the thing I'm actually obsessed with and eat all the time is popcorn. That's really the thing I should be known for. I eat popcorn constantly. So I'm really a popcorn guy, but the Oreo, and I'm not a sweet guy. Like I don't eat a lot of desserts, but the Oreo thing got traction. And I'm going to be honest, if you're going to be known for something, it might as well be Oreos. So I've been leaning into it because Oreos are fantastic.
Right. That's like an American classic, right?
That's right.
So I have to ask, you are a true lover of popcorn. Have you ever had like that gourmet like Oreo popcorn before?
Yeah, it's honestly really good. I mean, even just the regular, not the gourmet, even just the regular bagged Oreo popcorn is delicious. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was going to be terrible, but it was really good.
All right. So I think this works well, actually, that you did this taste test, because my follow-up question was going to be, are you an original guy, or like, do you get into the golden Oreos? Do you venture out of the traditional realm with your Oreos?
Yeah, you can pretty much, except for some of the weird limited ones, like they had like an apple one that I didn't get to try. There was one that I drove. I did a 4-hour trip driving around to every grocery store in the region that said online that it had it, to try and get these like twice baked cookie brownie Oreos that came out a couple of months ago, and I could not get them. I couldn't get them online. I couldn't get them in person. And I think there's some people have some packages on Amazon now, but I missed that window. But for the most part, you can pretty much name 2 types of Oreos, and I can tell you which one I like best from empirical testing.
Empirical testing.
Yes, that's right. It's just a very objective standard. But in terms of just sitting down and eating Oreos, original or birthday cake, they really are just the best for just sitting down and eating.
Do you use milk with the Oreo, or is it just the Oreo straight? Gotta have milk?
You gotta have milk. It depends on the flavor. Some of the fruit ones are better in the, like they're pretty good in the freezer, and they're good with other things other than milk. But like, so some of those, like the orange sherbet one, I don't dip in milk, but some of them I do. So
okay. Yeah. We won't go through and do a bracket for Oreo flavors, the Will Wight Oreo flavor bracket.
The entire time doing an Oreo tournament, and I would be prepared.
But I do have to ask what you think about mint Oreos.
Not for me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, mint chocolate is just not. It's not bad. Like I'm not one of those people that go. But I would never choose it. It's one of those mint and chocolate just don't. They're not my thing.
There's such a fine line to me between tastes like toothpaste and mint chocolate ice cream. Like there is good mint chocolate combos, but
yeah, for sure.
So often they just taste like toothpaste that it's like I'm not even going to try it, right?
But even when it is really good, to me, there's like a cap on how good it can be. It's not that I won't eat a mint Oreo. Like it's like, yeah, okay, I ate it. It was good. Am I going to have another one? No, probably not. I'm going to go get some of the ones we have, and are the chocolate peanut butter pie ones that I've got in the cupboard right now. So
okay. So this is actually
1 or 2 Oreos and I'm done. Like that's the entire day's worth of sugar for me. That's way too much. Like it'll often be even the next day. I'm like, I don't know. I had something sweet yesterday. I'm not really a sugar guy, which is funny.
That is funny how things end up. I would say I have to take out the amount I'm going to have with the milk, because if you put the package in front of me with a glass of milk, I'll just go to town. I have to get like 5 and then go away somewhere to eat that.
That makes sense. That's how I have to treat almost everything else. It's just sweets that's the only thing I self-regulate on. It's the I've had enough sugar now and I'll stop eating. Everything else is like, you leave it in there. If I liked it once, I will eat it until I have none left.
So I think this is going to be a good segue, actually, that I hadn't planned on.
Right.
But last year for the 21st anniversary of Pokemon, did you hear any of the craziness that was going around with the Pokemon Oreos?
Yes, yeah, and I ended up getting it back. But yeah, that was the whole thing.
That was nuts. We had a bag too, and we'd probably eaten half of them before I saw some articles that was like, I think the Mew Oreo was like
Yeah.
they were selling online for like thousands of dollars.
Yeah, people were selling the Mew Oreo, and I don't know how common it was or uncommon. I don't think I got one, but it's like I don't know. I didn't really check. It was just kind of, hey, look, it's Pokemon. And then
That was me too. I'm sitting there going, did I just eat $1,000 Oreo?
Yeah,
Like it's too late now, but
that's true.
I don't want to know.
I would have felt pretty bad if I had looked at it afterwards and been like, oh no, that was a Mew.
Right. That's half. I've got half a Mew left. Like, what's this worth?
That's right. This is maybe it's $500.
That's good question. So this whole conversation, the catalyst for this started when you were writing Reaper, because you have a line on your blog that says Reaper progress, and then below it says level 99 Gengar. So before that, I'd seen a couple Pokemon related tweets from you, but this was the one that I'm like, having read Reaper, I could maybe get it, but I just wanted you to explain.
So through Reaper, I started level 5 Ghastly, and then I sort of I leveled it up. So I ended up with like a level 32 Haunter and all that. So that was my progress, which was funny because there were just a couple of people. There were a couple of people who got mad at me because they didn't know what Ghastly and Haunter were. And, and we were like, and then you did the Gengar. I don't know what a Gengar is. And it's like, and they were mad because they didn't understand Pokemon. And one guy in particular, an older guy, was like really like, you should never do this. And I'm like, I mean, okay.
Okay.
All right. So that was pretty funny, but the inspiration of that was more just, I was just kind of like, it's one of the Pokemon that people are actually going to know. So if I was really going to do a more Reaper style Pokemon, I would have picked, I don't know, Weavile or something. But there's that was one that I thought people would know as like a creepy Pokemon that evolves. And then I got to make some jokes about having to trade a Haunter. So
I can't finish this book until I trade it with another author.
I got to trade with somebody else. Yeah.
That's awesome. I can imagine that there was probably this small group of readers checking progress, and they're trying to decipher that, like, even if they know Pokemon, like, what does the level mean? Like, what is he trying to tell us here? And you're like, this is just a fun way to keep track of progress.
Well, the funny thing is, because I started doing the progress thing, you'll notice there's not one up for Dread God, and that's not because I haven't done any work on it. It's because of what I'm about to explain. It was funny because I didn't used to have any sort of progress meter on my site, and yet, so of course, that's the most common question you get is how far are you? And then people had this campaign where they were like, okay, Will, here's how this is working. This is what you need to do. You need to just have any indication of how much progress you're making. And the thing I'd always said was, it's not like that, man. I'm not Brandon Sanderson. I don't do everything in the world's. I'm not a robot like he is. So I have to do things in a messy order. So it's like, I'll say it's you got to be okay with me going, it's 60%. No, wait, it's 40%. No, wait, it's actually. And I have to, I don't know what percentage it's at until I'm done. And they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. Just any indication that you're making progress is great. And so then I put it up, and of course the complaints were now, well, this isn't accurate, and I want a more detailed breakdown. And it was this very clear thing where many people were like, no, we are all going to be totally cool with you putting this up, and any information is better than none. And then it was like, you might as well not even put one up.
You're like, what do you want from me?
I learned. So anyway, that was years ago. And so I've kept putting them up, and people get excited when they see that I updated. So that's fun. But for this latest one, I really was like, if I put percentage up on Dread God book 11, people are going to think it's going to come out sooner than it is. I don't want to get into spoiler territory here. So therefore I didn't want to mislead people. So I just left the Reaper one up.
So did you do this for every book up to Reaper? Like I said, I just noticed it at Reaper, but now I'm curious.
I don't remember how long I've done it, actually. Where did I start doing that? I think it was in Cradle.
Okay.
I think it was in Cradle, but I've never used Pokemon before. I've always had some kind. For the last Elder Empire books, I did Elder Spawn to these up to Great Elder, and so I just did different phases. For some of the earlier Cradle books, I did the advancement levels, so Copper, Iron, Jade. Okay. So I try to just do something different every time rather than just X%.
It was just one of those, I guess, chance meetings that you chose Gengar, and here we are.
Gengar this time, yeah.
So it sounds like you are a casual Pokemon fan. I'm curious, do you play? What do you play? Do you play the video games? Are you into the TCG, just the anime, the manga? Tell me what you know and love about Pokemon.
I'm a lifer. So this is I got red and blue on the playground. So I got blue version. And I started with Squirtle because he was on the box. And then I've done water type in every other generation since. I've gotten every single Pokemon game on launch. And I played them all. So, yep.
So I have to ask, because I know you've been doing a lot of writing recently. How did that coincide with the Pokemon Legends Arceus launch?
Yeah. Okay. So I got Arceus, and I was like,
oh, hold on. We need to time out. So you say Arceus,
I
I say Arceus. I don't know what the right answer is, but I know that it's
I don't know what's correct, because there have been at least two official Pokemon sources that have said all the opposite things. But if I recall, I thought in the game they pronounced it once. I could be wrong. I could be. That could be my brain malfunctioning. But I thought it was Arceus. I've always said Arceus. I don't think I'm capable of changing, so I think I'm just gonna have to say, we're just gonna have to say different things. I don't know. I don't think there is a definitive answer, to be completely honest.
And I'm one of those people. I'm not judging you, because I'm one of those people that
Japanese name. What's the Japanese name?
If I don't hear the audio, like if I'm not listening to an audiobook and I read a name, I will go however long saying something incorrectly until someone's like, that's not how you say it. I mean, and I do this with all sorts of Pokemon names too.
Oh, it is Arceus. Yeah, it's Arceus. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well,
we have solved that debate.
I don't know why I never looked that up before.
Yeah. I haven't either.
I looked up how it was pronounced in the English in the anime. I was like, okay, so I looked up a clip of them saying it in the regular long running show, and then in the whatever the OVAs were, and it was two different things. So I thought, so I found two different clips of them saying it two different ways. So I was like, oh, it must not be. I never looked that up. So hey, now I know.
Now we know. Yeah, Arceus. Anyway, sorry, I totally sidetracked that question. So PLA comes out. I'm just gonna say PLA. Pokemon Legends comes out.
Yeah, there you go. So I was hyped for it. I had pre-ordered it and all that, and it was one of those things where my friends wanted me to try it out because they knew I was going to play it, and they wanted me to try it out to see if I could recommend it to them. And what I ended up saying was I got 20 hours in or whatever, and I ended up being like, for me and for my other friend who are big Pokemon fans, this is a must play. If you're not into Pokemon, like, it's the big draw of it was Pokemon Breath of the Wild, but it's not really, because it's like segmented zones, kind of more like Monster Hunter. So I was like, that was one of the big draws to me, is that I thought it was going to be more like that. And apparently Violet and Scarlet are going to be.
Right.
So
that's what they're promising.
That's exciting. Yeah, I look forward to that. So yeah. Anyway, but I liked the game. I really enjoyed it. But it was the other thing that I did was I set a vacation to just play Arceus, and that ended up falling through. I didn't end up getting to take that vacation, but oh well.
Soon. It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So then, I don't know. I don't have any more to add, I guess.
No. So outside of the video games, do you dabble in any other aspects of the franchise?
Not really. Obviously, as a kid, I was into the anime, but who wasn't? Right. And then I played a lot of the TCG as a kid. I ended up going from Pokemon TCG, going to tournaments for that, and then into Yu-Gi-Oh, going to tournaments for that, and then into the Dragon Ball Z TCG that nobody remembers, and Magic. So I played Magic for a long time. And then the only reason I stopped playing Magic was because I wrote House of Blades. So I didn't have time to go to F&M anymore. So yeah.
I feel that's the story of a lot of abandoned hobbies from authors. And it's the same way with me. I used to do X, but then I started writing, and I just can't anymore. Right.
I can't spend every Friday on anything because, sometimes I have to lock myself down and finish writing something. So that I can't schedule anything that I have to do regularly. And if you fall behind the meta, like you can't stay competitive. So if you're trying to play anything at a high level, it's like, yeah, you gotta give up on that.
So as a Pokemon fan, we're going to transition to talk a little bit about the Cradle series, but specifically about one character in one book. But before we get to that, I'm curious, was there anything from Pokemon at a higher level other than what we're about to talk about with Zeal that influenced Cradle in any way, maybe with the Sacred Beasts or anything like that?
It's hard to say. One of the things that I've always wanted from Pokemon is I really like the idea of, I think like everybody else does, the idea of this fantastical world where you're constantly interacting with Pokemon. Like, for instance, I went to see Detective Pikachu and I was like, what an amazing movie, 10 out of 10. And they were like, what? The acting was terrible and the plot didn't make any sense. And I said, actors, plot, I don't care. I saw Murkrow landing on a telephone wire.
Right. There were live Pokemon in a realistic environment.
Yeah, exactly. That was it. So it's being in the world that is the selling point to me. And one of the things that I really enjoy is this is a highly competitive title. This may be the nerdiest thing I've ever said. I have this headcanon, having played through all these Pokemon games, that like it's the same person getting reincarnated in a new person's body every time. And so every time they start and you're like, do you know what a Pokemon is? They're like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this again. Of course I know what a Pokemon is.
I've done this for 20 years.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I'm feeling as the player. And I feel like characters like, yes, I know what a Pokemon is. I know how to throw a Pokeball. Yeah. So then that's kind of the premise of Pokemon Legends Arceus. Like at the beginning is you actually do get isekai'd into a character in the Pokemon world. And I was like, wow, that works. That's smoothly. Anyway,
I thought that was the greatest intro, and it was because they completely hit it. Nobody knew about it. I remember when the Arc phone, they showed the Arc phone came out in, not as a leak, but it came out as part of the official announcements and build up. And everyone was just bagging on it. They're like, okay, so you're set in feudal Japan, but you have a cell phone. And then that intro just complete, like no one, I mean, it wasn't original necessarily.
But
it was so fresh and so unexpected.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So the thing that really got to me about Pokemon that I've always liked is that you want to be in the world, you want to be interacting with the world a lot. And so that value is something that I brought to the books that I write. But also, one of the things I've always wished with the Pokemon world and is that it would be more, I don't necessarily want to say fleshed out, because then it might not be as accessible as it is for kids, but more like you can capture Pokemon in Pokeballs and they're kind of sort of human intelligent and you can use these elemental powers. Why? They're effectively spirits, right? They're spirits is what they are. So they're just fully physically manifested spiritual creatures. And I kind of want that to be acknowledged in the universe. And so that's what separates, because in the anime version, at least in the game, there are a few references to this, but it's like maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but there are regular animals in addition to Pokemon, at least in the anime, and then in a few oblique references in the games. So I've always been like, I want there to be a difference between regular mundane animals and Pokemon. And this is the reason why you don't eat Pokemon. And this is the reason why. So I just have always been like, I want there to be that cohesive thing underneath it that brings it all together. And I just feel like there's a lot you can do with that space. And that kind of mesh of me going, I want this world that I would want to be in, but I also want there to be some logical consistency underneath it, even if you don't explore it in any sort of great detail. Mm-hmm. Is one of that was realizing that growing up is when I started kind of putting some pieces together about what I like in stories. And so that translates to what I like to write.
Okay. So specifically now getting into this blog post, you did a little behind the scenes of Ghostwater, and that's been a little while ago, quite a few books ago. But mm-hmm. Your original concept for Zill, and we won't go into too much background for those of you who don't know Zill, check out the books. You'll learn about him when you get to Ghostwater. But your original concept I found in this blog post, and I thought this was super fascinating as a Pokemaniac or just a Pokemon nerd, but he was originally like this sacred artist Pokemon trainer. So explain to me where this idea came from. You talk a little about a bit about why it was abandoned, and we'll get into that, but explain where the initial idea came from and what, I guess, got the ball rolling with this initial concept.
Well, I mean, initially the concept is it fit Cradle, right? I mean, you have sacred beasts, you can borrow their power with contracts, you have spirits that you can bind and make stuff happen. So that was kind of like, it was sort of a natural extrapolation of the world, but also I wanted to see somebody who was like Lyndon has contracts as like a supplementary part of his power and how he grows. But I wanted to see somebody who took that like to the furthest possible extreme. And I thought it would be a unique power set. So that was one of the main things I was looking for, is I was looking for him to have something that didn't overlap with Yaren and Lyndon and Ethan. Right. So I was going, this is the kind of thing that I can, and also there was a lot of opportunities to play off of each other. So one of the original concepts for Ghostwater is in Ghostwater, even as it is now, even the real version, it's Lyndon going through a pocket dimension. well, in the original inception of it, he would have had a lot more chance to interact with Zeal as they were going through stuff and they kept running into each other. So it added a new dimension to those interactions to have other supplementary little sacred beasts weighing in on stuff. It just would have, it was a neat character dynamic, I thought.
And then as you continued to work with the idea, it just didn't quite fit in,
Yeah.
and it ultimately ended up being abandoned, right? Obviously for those of you who have read Ghostwater, but that is a fun fact that Zill basically started off, I think you compare him to Red, and I'm assuming you mean Red kind of in Gen 2 when he's this like dude who's super powerful, hiding in the mountains, doesn't talk a lot, kind of that concept.
In the Red from the Pokemon Adventures manga, from the whole time, Green is the one, or I guess Blue. Blue is the one who is the I don't remember how that got translated, but Gary is the one who's the battle maniac, and Red is the one who is the guy who really bonds with his Pokemon. And so the whole thing, the whole dichotomy of the original arc of Pokemon Adventures is who's going to be out ahead. Is it the guy who ruthlessly focuses on victory all the time, or is it the dude who is really trying to bring out 110% of his Pokemon by getting to know them and all that and working as a team? So that was the kind of that there was an element of that. It was this hot-blooded, anime protagonist kind of thing where he's going in guns blazing, but he really does care about his team, and So that was the vibe I was going for, and the reason I wanted that is because it directly contrasted to the villain of that book, Harmony, who is a member of the Kerr clan, who is just this icy, self-focused kind of guy. And so then that would help them clash. It would help define both characters better, and it would set up Lyndon for later. So that was kind of the original intention there.
I have to say, I started reading Cradle. I can't remember. There were a few books out before I started reading it, but Orthos, when Orthos came in, coincided with Pokemon Sword and Shield coming out, and for some reason I got in. Like every time I picture Orthos, I picture a Dreadnought from Pokemon Sword and Shield. Like, it's just in my head now, and I like the colors are completely off, but that's literally as I'm listening to the audiobooks,
Sure.
I see a Dreadnought walking around and talking. Anyway,
virtually everything virtually everything could be designed Pokemon style, and it would be out of place. So it's like, sure.
So have you ever thought about revisiting this concept in Cradle? I know you kind of have the final books planned out, so we don't want to get into any spoilers. But did you ever think about using this concept of like a sacred beast trainer or something like that, maybe in another capacity?
Yeah, I definitely did. I definitely wanted to have some more of these people who primarily get their power through sacred beast contracts or remnant taming or whatever. But I didn't, for the same reason that I kind of went away from Zeal, and that is you have to characterize two people now. So instead of having to characterize one, it's now characterizing a group, which for people who don't matter is like, so for characters who aren't going to matter very much, it's like, wow, you've really gotten a long intro for this guy who's only going to be around for 2 seconds. So that was really it was cleaner to not go into that. So I've alluded to some of it a little bit. People talk like, oh yeah, those people are out there, but there haven't been anybody. The one character that is more in that direction, more of a Beastmaster tamer sort of, is the Beast King, who is introduced as one of Zeal's mentors. And he may or may not play a role in books 11 and 12. So it's very possible we'll get to see him again and get to see him doing something cool. Because with him, at least, I don't really have to characterize his companion so much as he's got a lot of them, right? So
there's a juicy little teaser at about the 20-minute mark for anyone that sticks with us, right?
Anybody who's at this point into our Pokemon conversation doesn't care about Cradle spoilers. They're here for the Pokemon stuff.
Either that, or we have some really dedicated Cradle fans that don't like Pokemon that are like, if I listen through this whole thing, there might be something. So there's your nugget.
I know at least a couple who will scrub through anything I ever say, just in case I happen to drop a nugget about some upcoming stuff.
Well, there we go, right?
Yeah.
So if we have just a minute, and we don't need to do a blow by blow of his entire team, but what I thought was cool was in this original concept of Zeal, you have a team kind of planned out for him. And I have that pulled up here. This will be a test. I know for me as an author that there's a lot of things I'll hear from a reader about a book that I wrote 5 years ago, and I have a terrible author memory is what I call it. And they'll talk about some scene or something, and I'll say, I'm going to level with you. I do not remember that. I'm
Glad you
so
said that.
sorry.
One of the things that I have trouble communicating to people who aren't authors is that I think of this so differently than you think of it. It's hard to express. If I was a fan of this series, I would know all what you're saying. I would know all the little trivial stuff. I would know all that. As the author, it takes up space in my brain proportional to how important it is. So if it's important to my long-term plans, I know a lot about it. And the other thing is, like, so for a while there, I know this now, but Lyndon's dad's name is Duran. And for a while there, I couldn't remember what his name was because so I had to look it up every single time because I remembered all the names I was going to give him. So I remember all the stuff that didn't make it. So it's like, what is actually in the books? I don't know. So then they reference this scene or something, and I'm like, I don't know. I kind of remember considering writing that scene. I don't remember if I wrote that scene, a different scene, or it's like, I don't remember.
Like the whole point of writing it is to get it out of your head.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So no, I'm glad that that's not just me, because I feel really bad when I'm like, I can't comment on that. That was a book I wrote 5 years ago. You'll have to tell me what it works.
I've become a lot cagier about answering questions like that without my notes on me, because I'm going, I don't know, man. It could have been a lot. I'm going to say something to you and I'm going to be honest. But then you'll be like, no, you said in this book. I'm like, yeah.
Like, I need a page number, and you can quote it to me, and then I'll be like, yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
So getting into this, we're going to run through Zeal's championship team here. The first was Runt, who is a Sylvan mountain seed, forms a giant body from nearby stone, rocks, sand, metal, etc., and fights like that. It kind of sounds like Groot.
That ended up being closer to the power set I actually gave Zeal.
That is true, yeah. Second, we have Bloodfist, and I'm going to interject here and say that I think a lot of these ideas or concepts actually did end up being transferred to other characters, or at least taking place in some way in the book, even if it wasn't part of the sacred.
I usually end up reusing stuff. I usually just what I do a lot is go read over my old ideas, and then usually I'll repurpose it somewhere. So
we have Bloodfist, a deep walker ape hybrid, only a little bigger than a human, uses earth blood madra for increased ferocity and resilience. Zeal keeps him caged in his garden and doesn't know him well enough to actually rely on him. Then we have Bool, an aquatic water/wind octopus who creates bubbles so that Zeal can breathe underwater, particularly adept at ruler techniques for controlling water and air and drawing air from water. So my thought when I read this was that was going to help him navigate in ghost water. Was that the idea?
Yeah, that was the reason why that ability is what's emphasized in these notes, because these are really, and I mentioned this in the blog post you're getting this from, but these are kind of like my first thought. I was just like, look, let me just come up with a team, and then we'll see how I feel about it and play with it. And I didn't like it. And the reason I emphasized that particular ability for the water type was because that's going to come into play in ghost water. So that was it obviously would have other abilities on the surface.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then we have Hole, the nut of a sacred tree with roots that wrap around Zeal's arm. Force, Earth, Life Madra that specialize in defensive enforcer and forger techniques. Combined with his iron body, this is meant to make him all but invincible defensively. Mm-hmm. So to me, reading this, it seems like a lot of these, and we've kind of talked about this, but they interject or work in conjunction with the sacred artist's own progress. So they're enhancing different things that the sacred artist is already doing. At least maybe that's what it seems like the idea was.
That was the idea. That was the concept behind this. Yeah, which I never fleshed this out. So right. It was not, this particular build or setup or whatever would have been a lot more refined had it actually made it into a book. But yeah, that was the usual intent, is that the Madra he has to be compatible with everybody he's bonded with. So that's the idea, is that he's got to have something that can link to everybody.
I'm just waiting in like the Pokemon Reddit or somewhere for someone to put up a screenshot with a team that has all these names. So if I ever see it, I will share it, but I know that's going to be out there somewhere. So then next we have Sethis, a 3-foot tall humanoid blade mantis. Its arms have little graspers at the end, and there are blades folded beneath them, but it actually carries a sword. And the part that I thought was cool, kind of intriguing with this, is that it has the personality of a tiny, honorable knight. Mm-hmm. Cool.
That was honestly the one of these that I liked the most, because I loved the just visual of a little tiny silver like mantis thing that unnecessarily carries a sword and is just all very strict and honorable and whatever. And it's like challenging people to duels and stuff. And it's 2 inches tall. And then so then you can have, and then I had these thoughts of like having it interact with little blue, Lyndon's little thing, and having little blue be taller. So that I just, it's little stuff that I'm firing off in my brain to think about, okay, what cool character interactions can there be?
The first thing that immediately went in my mind when I read that was like, and I don't know why I went here, but I'm like, it's Jiminy Cricket crossed with Don Quixote, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's what I don't, like I said, that's just where I went. The next one, Restaroth, a white and gold phoenix or dragon, I'm assuming. This could be something that Zeal gains over the course of the series. It's a hybrid of a white dragon and a gold phoenix, and it uses a path based on sunlight and heat with devastating striker technique. So another cool kind of hybrid monster concept there.
Yeah, so that idea was, again, I was trying to do like a feathered dragon sort of thing, and that was supposed to be his big hitter, his legendary, for using Pokemon terms. So it was supposed to be this sweeper for the team, and that was, again, that was one of those things that I was like, I'm trying to. I was playing with it. I was trying to go, okay, which of these do I feel like is appropriate? Which of these should I drop? And one of the things that's interesting is I think I've used pieces of those names, Restaroth and Sethis. I feel like I've reused those somewhere. I'll have to look that up.
I feel like they maybe were reincarnated in some of the dragon names, maybe.
Yeah, I think so Restaroth was definitely a dragon style name, right?
Right.
And then Sethis, I think I changed or repurposed into somebody's name not too long ago. We'll look that up.
There's going to be a lot of Easter eggs that have been cracked open from this conversation maybe tonight.
Yeah.
Then the last one is Silk, which is a purple and white winged tiger cub that was Zill's first pet. And it kind of has the trope of he pushed her too hard and treated her like a weapon instead of a friend, and she ended up dying. So now he carries that guilt with him. And basically that seemed like the kind of a character defining sacred beast, I guess you could say, or shaped basically who this really alpha version of Zeal was going to become.
Super embarrassing having you read this all out like this, like roaming over this like unfinished stuff that I hated putting that up in the first place. It was my family who nudged me into that. They were like, look, you've done backstory on all the other books. You can't skip this one. You've talked about this before. And I listen, this is painful to read. And the reason is this was half baked. This was like my first off the dome, like this kind of idea. However, in that in particular, I obviously took that from the fan theory about Blues Eradicate from Gen 1. So for people who aren't familiar, he's in Lavender Town. He's looking at a gravestone, and he's more serious than usual when you run into him, your rival, in Red and Blue. And then later on, when you fight him again, he never has his Eradicate again. So the fan theory is that his Eradicate died, and that has made him more serious and more. So I was like, oh yeah, okay, I can use that as a character detail. And the point was to try and give this thing, the character some backstory, some depth, and some sense that he had been walking this path for quite a long time. And of course, in this version of Zeal, he is not a former Archlord. So, yep.
Cool. So no, I would say, as like I said, as someone who's read Cradle, loves Cradle, also a Pokemon fan, I thought this was super awesome. I understand both as a reader and an author why you didn't go with it. It's one of those kill your darling types of things. But I'm going to speak for the other Pokemon nerds out there that also love Cradle. And I think this was a really great behind the scenes to share, especially since coming from that angle of being a fan of the monster taming genre.
So what I actually did like about sharing those details is it does kind of show. So it sort of shows the process how it evolves, right? Like how it evolves, how it develops over time. And that is, you start off with this kind of general concept. I had reasons behind it. I did a quick run at it and then didn't like it. So I left that idea by the wayside, tried a lot of different stuff for Zeal. And that one was one that got left behind. But one other thing that you don't realize kind of as a reader is when it's not developed, it sounds, well, that could never work. So there were some people who reacted that way when I shared this post, as they were going, well, that was a dumb idea. And I was like, there are, I don't want to say there's no such thing as a dumb idea, because there definitely are, but it's execution that makes it good. So if you said, yeah, I'm going to do the main character and he's going to have 2 powers, and both of his powers, he's going to have black dragon powers, and then the other power he has is going to be like anti-magic, and he's going to like wipe everybody else's magic away. And that sounds like somebody's original edgy Sonic character.
Right.
And then it depends on how you execute it. And if you have those things develop in time in the way that makes sense in the world, and have the character kind of choosing these abilities and cultivating them, then you can make it work.
Which you may or may not have been alluding to Lyndon there.
Oh,
right. I think most fans will get that, but anyway.
I think so.
So just a few rapid fire questions before we end our chat here. And then I want to talk a minute about
lightning round.
All right, lightning round. So favorite Pokemon generation or game?
Oh man, I can't even lightning round that one. You immediately stumped me. So my Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I had a really great experience with those. They were the few spinoff games that I thought were better than the originals. I thought they were harder. There was a lot more content. Yeah. And so off the dome, Heart Gold, Soul Silver.
Okay. This is a 2-part question. The first is your favorite starter overall, and then the second is your favorite Pokemon overall. May be different, maybe the same.
All right. So my brain's stuck in Gen 1, guys. I'm too old for this. So this is this is my favorite Pokemon. The one I try to have on my team every time is Gengar. And I love Gengar. I try to have him on my team every single time. I think the aesthetic is cool. I hate that he's poison type, but whatever. He's just a neat archetypal ghost. He looks super cool. He has all these neat abilities. He's got a lot of coverage. He's fast. You can do a lot with him. And he's just a fun, cool Pokemon. I think he's awesome. If I got to pick one, I would pick Gengar. But then favorite starter is a little harder. I pick water every time, but I really liked Decidueye, and that's the grass starter that ends up being grass. Maybe I have a thing for ghost types, but he ends up being grass ghost. I thought he was cool. I thought he was a neat starter. Most of the water starters kind of suck in terms of like, they just don't look cool. They're not cool.
Primarina, cough.
Yeah. See, Blastoise is super cool, and a couple of the others are. I think Greninja is super cool, which is why he ends up getting in Smash Brothers. But so you get Primarina, you get what was it? It's Totodile, Croconaw, for alligator, and whatever the water ground one are, the Marshtomp. Right. Those are they feel the same. They don't feel unique. They don't feel like they're designed. It just doesn't do anything for me. But I'm loyal to water, so I got to do it every time. So I'm Marshtomp. That's it. Thank you. Okay. So they don't do anything for me. So most water types don't do that. But I thought Greninja was a nice standout. I thought Blastoise obviously is the classic, and yeah, I just, in terms of the starters, I really liked Decidueye, even though I didn't pick it. I was like, you're a classy Pokemon there. You look cool.
Well, I mean, and he starts out as an owl, and I think he has a bow tie. Like, it's this little round owl with a bow tie on.
I know, that's the other thing. Rowlet is awesome. Rowlet is super cute. It's little tiny, and I love it when the Pokemon do the standard thing of they go, the first stage 1 is cute, stage 2 is kind of like the weird middle child, and then stage 3 is cool, and it's the more the scarier one, I guess, the cooler looking one. And so I prefer things that go in that stage, and Rowlet definitely does.
So I have to ask this, since you're a Gengar fan. I think it's in Gen 4. There's going to be someone that corrects me if I'm wrong, but there's an NPC in the game that has a Haunter. And as everyone knows, you have to trade a Haunter to get a Gengar. So you trade for her Haunter, expecting it to evolve in Gengar, but she has it holding an Everstone, which makes it not evolve. So did you experience that, and how bad did that shake you?
I remember it vividly because I traded for it, and I was like, oh, do you not get to that when you trade with NPCs? And I was like, wait, there are other trade evolutions you can get with NPCs in other games. And then I saw that it was holding an Everstone, and I was so mad. I was just like, why would you do this? What possible reason could there be for this? And it was one of those things where my gut feeling is that it caused some problem, having like, maybe you couldn't get Haunter in your Pokedex, or maybe I don't know, it's maybe just something where they last minute fix were like, crap, just give it an Everstone. And that's what it felt like. I have no clue if that's real or not, but that was the suspicion I had. And that was a dark day.
I was gonna say, as a Gengar fan, that's probably the meanest trick I could think of that a
It was
developer
bad,
could
man.
put into a game.
Yeah. And I would say what you said about you're going to say, whatever generation, somebody's going to correct you. Half the stuff I've said about Pokemon in this thing, somebody's going to be like, well, actually,
Right? Like,
I remember this girl I knew in college, she had on her Facebook profile, one of her quotes to indicate how nerdy she was that she knows what level Pidgeot evolves, but Pidgeot doesn't evolve. Pidgeot is the final evolution of Pidgey. And so I was like, that's, I want to chat. I think you met Pidgeotto there. And so then that was a mistake to point that out. She did not like that. So that was one of the things that I learned is when you're looking up somebody's Facebook to learn their interests, don't then critique them for the way that they say that. See, it's all part of growing up.
right.
Yeah.
So this is a quiz. What level does Pidgeotto evolve into Pidgeot?
Well, my immediate gut reaction is 32.
I think it's 36, but now you have me questioning everything.
I don't know. That's
about
fine.
everything.
Immediately, I was like, 32. I don't know. I could easily be wrong. I have no idea.
I'm gonna Google this. So we're just because we need to know now.
Yeah, I want to know. I'm curious.
36.
36. Got it. There you go. You had it.
There we go. I when I said 36,
into your brain.
I thought it was 32. As soon as you said 32, my palms were sweating. I'm like, great, I'm going to get this wrong. But anyway.
No, you got it. I didn't know. I was overestimating Pidgeot.
So end of rapid fire questions. Just one last question before we talk a little bit about what you have going on is what do you think about knee-jerk reaction from what you've seen of Scarlet and Violet so far?
From the little we've seen, which is not a whole lot,
right?
Very excited. It really feels like Pokemon Legends Arceus was like a prototype for developing the stuff that they're going to use in Violet Scarlet, which I'm very excited about. I would love to see a full gen there. And I would also love to see the rest of the Pokemon back because they got removed in Sword and Shield. So I know that it becomes a headache if you are trying to code them all walking around in the whole, you got to have all these models and whatever. But I just want to see it. I want to be able to catch them all. I want them all in there. I'm not even a Pokedex completionist kind of guy. I'm just like, I want to be able to get whatever Pokemon I want. So yeah.
It's one of those things I think, and I'm the same way. I don't think I've ever finished a Pokedex in any game, but it's the fact that I can't versus that I'm just choosing not to, right?
Right. But it's really the like, okay, so I do want a Gengar on my team. So therefore, and Gengar is always going to be in the games because he's a fan favorite, just like Charizard. But it's still one of those where it's like, yeah, but what if I wanted a seal? I don't know why anybody would, but what if you did? And it's like, okay, well then I want to be able to have a seal and a Kling Kang and a whatever the ice cream cone one is. I want to have the Vanillux. I want them all. I want them all on the same team and Garbodor and whatever. And I want to have them all the crappy Pokemon on one team. I want to be able to do that. It's not that I necessarily want to collect them all. I just want to have the ones that I want. And that's a big draw of being in the world to me is that you can have your favorite Pokemon and you can pick them just because you're favorite and they're your favorite. You don't need to be super. So that's one of the things that people criticize the games for not evolving their formula a lot, which I understand. It's a valid criticism. It's been a long time and the game design hasn't changed fundamentally in 20 years. But I don't think they necessarily need to change fundamentally. I love the idea of Pokemon Breath of the Wild. I'm glad they're doing that. That's very exciting to me. But I'm going, yeah, the games are for 7-year-olds. I want 7-year-olds to be able to play these like I did when I was 7. So I want them to be able to do that. And for me, it's just fun to kind of be in Pokemon world for a while. Would I like some challenge? Yeah, but the challenge comes in playing other people after you come through the story. So I don't know. It's my experience.
And I agree. And I've thought about as a fan, what keeps bringing me back for a different map, a different set of Pokemon, but basically the same story time after time. And I wrote this down while you were talking because I wanted to bring it up really quickly is I feel there's kind of an intersection, I think, between progression fantasy fans and fans who like games like Pokemon, in that there is that progression element where every time you start a new game, like you said, you go through the same intro every time, but then you just there's kind of just this open opportunity in front of you, right? Like you don't exactly know what your team's going to be, but you know you're going to level it up. And even though you know exactly the story may be slightly different. You know exactly what to expect. I think just that progression element of Pokemon is what brings fans back to wanting to do it again, right?
I still think like it's from kid me, right? I feel like there's the room for this game, probably not in a main series Pokemon game, but like maybe a Pokemon knockoff, like Temtem. It's if you had a world you could really interact with and you could do things like blow walls of a building apart with your hyper beam. I just every time I like go into a Pokemon like a Team Rocket Fortress or whatever, and I'm way out leveled with them, and I'm summoning Kyogre, and so the entire the skies are blackening and rain is coming down all over their thing, and this dude with a Meowth is like, "What are you doing here, kid?"
Right.
And I'm like, "God of the oceans is like hovering above me, listening to my every command. You should probably not be throwing your pet cat at me. I'm just saying." You should pay attention to what's happening here. And I kind of feel the same way. It's like in Skyrim when you consume the soul of a dragon and they're like, "Hey, get out of my way. This is my store.
I'm going to rob you," right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like,
what?
You not see what just happened? There's the dragon slowly decaying bones right there. I don't, okay, well, yeah. So I just think that would be kind of a fun take on the Pokemon thing where they're like, let's challenge you to a battle, and you blow the whole wall up. It's like massive crater.
I just had this like when you said, I'm summoning this primeval rain god. It's like the equivalent of a sacred artist being like, "Oh, you want a duel? Okay, I'm going to summon my dread god to fight you." And
that's right.
Let's do this, right?
It's 100%. It's like, wait, and you unfortunately can't really get this dynamic in Cradle because people can sense each other's power level. But it's like challenging somebody to a duel, knowing that they're a level above you, and so they're like summoning meteors from the sky, and you're like, "I got you with my sword, bro."
Right, I'm gonna poke you.
Not gonna work.
That makes me think of in Gen 2 when you go into the one of the Team Rocket bases with Lance, and like literally you see him even on the Game Boy Color version, he pulls out his Dragonite, who like literally I think hyper beams one of the Team Rocket guys, and you're like, why can't I do that? Like,
that's exactly right.
What the heck?
One of the things I mentioned the Pokemon manga earlier, and one of the things I really liked about the manga is that the Pokemon really do like interact with the world. And so when in I think it's Yellow's arc in the manga, you have Lance using his hyper beam to like destroy buildings and stuff. And I'm like, that is sick and super cool. And I would love to. And I've heard of people playing like Pokemon TTRPGs, and I think that would be really neat. Obviously, Monster Tamer, lit RPGs, and Progression Fantasy have been done. But one of the things I always feel when I consider about writing something like that that's really focused on the taming or Pokemon style, even just straight up Pokemon style knockoff, it needs a visual component. I just feel very strongly that you need to be able to go, "Ooh, I really like the design of that Pokemon, and I want to see it happen," or creature, whatever it is. And I think without a visual component, it just isn't as. It's just one of those ideas that I think you need to see them. You need to see the things. So no matter how well you describe it, it's not as clear as it would be in a video game where you can just show it.
It's like kind of short code. Like for me anyway, like I said, my initial thought of Orthos was, "Oh, that's a Dreadnought," and then you have that in your head every time you see it. But no, I totally agree. It's really hard to pull off that concept when you can't showcase, "This is my awesome monster. This is my turtle with a shell and guns on it," type of thing.
Yeah, I thought the closest thing to something like that I would want is John Bierce, where Hugh is looking through all these things that he can potentially bond with.
Right.
Well. He's looking through all these monsters that he can potentially bond with, and I was going, "Ooh, that's awesome! Oh, that's awesome!" And it was all stuff that I wanted to see more of. And so it's that kind of idea that I was like, "Yeah, I could read a book that is focused around everybody trying to do that." But ultimately, there's way too many things I'd love to read.
Right. That was, now that you mentioned that was one of the highlights for me in the Mage Errant series. He's just flipping through this book like, here's this, literally demigod monster that I could maybe bond with, and here's what it does. And they go through. I love that you see like there's like a half a dozen pretty detailed descriptions of these, and this had me super nerding out over that as a Pokemon.
That's what I really liked, because I was sitting there going, any of these would work. I'm like, I could see a main character using almost any of these powers, and then he ends up with a really cool one by the end of the first book. So I don't know if that counts as a spoiler, but so that was one of the things that I when I was reading that, I thought, I could easily see a Tamer or Bonding or series, and of course I had already written Black Flame at that point. So I was sitting there going, "Oh yeah, that's the kind of thing I could do with contracts." But of course I'm going in very different direction.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of potential there. I think there's a lot to, because as it's a great way of showing off your world. It's a great way of interacting with things. It's a great way of having, of characterizing your world as distinct from all the others that are similar to it. And it's a good way of having characters interact with monsters and fantastic creatures in a way that expands the world.
Definitely. So just to wrap up now, for those who haven't heard, you have a Kickstarter going right now.
That's
This will
right.
go out before it's over. So
Yeah.
really high level, I'm sure you've talked about it a lot, but just give us the I know it exceeded all expectations, but tell me what your thoughts are at this point with just under, I think it's a week today, right? You have a week left starting today, which is March 17th.
I think so. Yes. Getting sick really threw me off, but yes, I think that's right. So this is interesting. We were really trying to fund a print run of the first 3 books in Cradle, because there were 2 things we wanted to be able to do. We wanted to be able to do special editions, which people have been asking for a long time. And we wanted to have a print run to potentially use to get into bookstores, because as you probably know, but a lot of people may not, in order to get into bookstores, you have to be able, the person providing the books has to be able to take on liability for lost, damaged, unsold, or returned copies. And if you don't have a bunch of books sitting around, you can't do that, because most of my books are print on demand. So we were like, okay, so we didn't know how much interest there was going to be. And so we set our kind of goal very, very modestly. And we were thinking, we set it at $10,000 and we might get 25,000 or even 50,000. We were like, that would be we thought that would be the cap. And we're over 500,000 now. And so it's like, I have no clue where these people are coming from. And it's been one of those things where it was so cool and so much more. I really adjusted my plans the last couple of weeks just to kind of ride the Kickstarter wave, because there was just a lot more people involved than we realized there were going to be. So it's been extremely cool. So this whole special edition thing still ongoing. Anybody can still get their special edition copies of the first 3 books in Cradle. They're faux leather covers. Anything you get from the Kickstarter is going to be signed by me. I'm going to have to learn to sign a lot of books in a short amount of time. So that's going to be interesting.
I was going to say, so
yeah.
My cousin, I'm going to give him a shout out because he's a fan of yours. And he messaged me the other day and he said, and this was a few days ago, so you've had more backers since then, but he said, do you realize that I did the math and I think Will has to sign like 11,147 books. And that was like 3 days ago. So I was going to ask you, are you going through, do you have like a personal like trainer for your writing hand?
One of my best friends did the math and he sent me this thing of like, you have to sign between, I'm gonna make these numbers, I don't remember what they are, but between 11,046 or between 11,046 books and 14,645 books. And I was like, awesome. Cool. Yeah. So what is really crazy is we're trying to come up with like stretch goals and stuff to just keep people engaged and make people, it's super fun just so people enjoy the Kickstarter more. But it's hard to do because this is not a developed product. These are old books. So it's like having more people pledge doesn't mean we can do more with the project. Like we're set in. It's just the amount that we're doing it. We can't change fundamental stuff because it's already in motion. And if we had known we were going to be swinging in the 500,000 ballpark, we may have changed some things initially. But you never know. That was not something anybody would have bet. That was just really insane. It was also very cool that Brandon Sanderson reposted my video, essentially poking fun at him. So it was, I was like, I was very positive and complimentary in the video because I feel very positively about his Kickstarter. I backed it, but I was still like, oh, I did a little parody of you and then you reposted me. Now I kind of feel bad.
You're like, oh, he saw that, right?
It wasn't critical. It was just like, it never occurred to me that Brandon Sanderson would be watching this video that I made. So that was
probably a good thing when you were recording it though.
Yeah, the funniest thing was I did a serious video for the Kickstarter that was just me really quick. It's a minute of me just talking about the Kickstarter. And then I did this funny one. And the funny one was one take and it was immediate and it was off the top of my head. And the other one, I had a script and I had to remember it. We did 40 takes and I hated myself and I wanted to go just roll into traffic. And it was all the difference between I had a joke I wanted to tell and versus I had a lot of information I needed to remember in the right order. And also you needed to keep it under a certain time limit. And so it was just funny how much more natural it was when I was just going, yeah, just telling a joke.
Well, I would encourage everyone to check that out. We said this is March 17th. And if you see this in the near future, I believe the Kickstarter ends March 24th. So definitely go check that out. And just know that Will is getting ready to sign a lot of books. He's doing a lot of the hand squeezers, and he's got his pens lined up and he's ready to roll.
I am indeed ready to sign. It's a good problem to have.
Definitely. Well,
So anyway,
thanks so much for
having,
yeah, great to have this chat tonight. And maybe after Scarlet and Violet comes out, we'll have another chat again and get some thoughts on that.
there you go.